salaries, dividends, interest, and other income a person earns throughout the year. The tax is generally imposed by the state in which the income is earned. Over time, questions still linger on the understanding of this task form without clear answers. Yet, in all, one has to file their returns regardless. All Kenyans of age will be expected to file their returns or their income tax returns by the 30th of June 2021. Just how ready are you? Today on Business with KCK, we engage experts as we task them to guide us on the above. Also, we have educationists as well. And of course, we look at what next after the release of Kenya's Certificate of Secondary Education results. That is yesterday. That is at this particular time, and we get to engage them as the very first guests that we'll be having this morning. Celebrations, alations across. And of course, a clarion call not to condemn the individuals who probably did not perform well. Morning Cafe begins right now. My name is Linda Alela. The hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47 KESMS short code 22047. The numbers to call running down on your screen. That is to welcome you and tell you that it's important that you engage with us this morning, because then we value your feedback. We get to sample some of these comments as we proceed with the broadcast, and it's your time to equally say, you know what, we appreciate this person who performed well. It is important that we have conversations that revolve around matters education, just so we get it all right. We say clearly and evidently there is nowhere a nation goes without a proper education. Incorporation of the competency-based curriculum, a new system of education that many people are looking at to see whether then it brings changes or not. Are we going to get to that point where we'll say, well, we cease from subjecting students to this every year's examination processes, and don't focus much on that in terms of gauging their performances or in terms of gauging their levels of, I don't want to say integrity, but yes, intellectual capacity. Welcome on board. Let's look at all this later on. This guest will get to join me. But first, briefly, just peeping on what it is that the papers have. Technically, the better part of all these papers, talking about what happened yesterday, that release, as families continue to celebrate this great win. And, this 2020 students exhibiting a tremendous, progress, or a tremendous, of course, success in comparison to what played out in 2019. And here we are, like I said, it's the biggest story, the best of the best. Despite COVID-19 pandemic, more candidates scored A's and even more qualified to join university. I remember it was a tough year for them, 2020. The better part of the year they were not in school, going back to school somewhere in October, having stayed away from school or stayed at home right from March. Indeed, it wasn't an easy one. And many of them sort of felt like, it will be tough a year. It will be tough for them to even go through an examination on crash program. But well, they did us proud. And despite this tough times, indeed, they are here, top of the class, with a dominant presence. That is in the ranking of the top 15 candidates countrywide. Kenya High School, of course, leads the KCSE charts as newcomers Murang'a High and Agoro Sare Spring surprise on some of the traditional giants who miss out from the list of stellar performers. And this time round, of course, it is a whole different picture. Pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 speak extensively of the examinations, as of course released yesterday. I saw it coming, says top student. He was a great performer. You've seen a photo of him making rounds on social media, holding a check alongside his principal, who had promised that if you top up the list in the country, then you definitely get this check. And indeed, well, we hope that that promise is going to be fulfilled. 2 days before the start of the Kenyan Certificate of Secondary Education exams, Murang'a High School Deputy Principal Charles Karanja, it's actually the Deputy Principal who handed the 50,000 post-dated check to the top student, and Robinson Wanjala Simiyu, with a promise that he could crush it if he topped it, or he would cash that particular check. That is, if he tops this. And true to it, He has done the school proud. He has done the deputy principal proud. He's done his parents proud. He's equally done himself proud. Just a list of the key students or the top students, as of course they performed: Agora Sari High School, Homa Bay, Alan Wasonga Udoma, Esther Wachuchu Mbogwa, and Kenneth Oranga, Henry Madaga, and very many other students. Some of the national champions are captured right here, as you can see, and also the list of top 15 students nationally as captured right here. And like I've said, is technically what it is that is forming the basis of our conversation this morning as we engage educationists on some of the things that really need to be done on, transformations in the education sector, just so as a country we are able to get to that point where we get our education system proper. Remember, there have been complaints that most of the times we subject our students to more of the exam process as opposed to preparing them for the job market, and therefore hence the reason why even if they go to other countries, then they go there not as ripe for the job market. But the argument then is that the competency-based curriculum will bring a new face to matters education. And so we'll look at that. Of course, a PS also sworn in yesterday that will come in handy to deal with the aspect of matters competency-based curriculum, just to ensure that indeed the rollout of this program is as expected or as envisioned by the government. And Standard newspaper equally speaks of the same. Kapsabet boys Kabarak top honors in Rift, and Kapsabet boys emerges top nationally, scooping 2 slots among the top 15 overall as Moi High School Kabarak posts impressive performance in Form 4. A story captured on page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12. Technically what we'll be discussing this morning. But even as we look at that, we do not forget other stories as captured also. Raila now meets Orengo Ngilu and Oparanya in a bid to make sure that at least he quells the fire or the unrest that is in ODM. A story captured on page 14 of the Standard newspaper. This even as we look forward to see what a Senate then decides on the aspect of matters BBI. We'll be having our very own political reporter, that is Elizabeth Motuko, giving us updates on that. Bensouda, on the other hand, Ruto bribed witnesses, a national page, of course, or a story captured on page 13 of the Standard newspaper. This in regards to the ICC drama that still lingers around. Big question as to how they handle our cases or the African cases at large. A majority of African countries have conversation revolving around how best they can exit from the ICC, because they felt like the ICC has handled African cases with some level of bias, and not an easy one, or not an easy aspect to just find yourself exiting out of the ICC. And yes, these cases continue to linger as to the 2007-2008 post-election violence. And we wait to see what plays out in regards to this, even as there's been so much, cold approach to the same in the country. WRC top dog to compete in Safari Rally, that is in regards to Mata Sports, as captured on page 41. The individuals who are interested and would love to understand much about the rally, then this also you get to get a hold of and understand what it's all about. Like I said, much of what has played out in the examinations, but then again also another story here as captured on page 2, reflecting on maternal and infant deaths as we mark Mother's Day. Of course, there was that celebration on Sunday. Many people came out to celebrate the importance of the woman in society. But importantly to note, the International Mother's Day is occasioned or has been occasioned with quite tough moments on the aspect of child mortality, and also marking, or ensuring that at least maternal health is something that has been focused upon to make sure that, no mother loses her life, or no child loses her life or his life at that point where, they've gone to probably give birth. And so this conversation has been on for quite a while. We have seen how tremendously we have looked into that also, alongside or with the push of the mother of the nation, Mama Margaret Kenyatta, also in regards to just ensuring that such is addressed. And international scene, US GOP fraud fantasies live on. A story captured on page 29. Republicans are searching for evidence to support claims they already believe is in existence. And Lamu Port ready for ship. Remember, people have been waiting for this, and Musk, a firm that controls over 35% of cargo handled in Mombasa, has expressed interest to deploy its big ships to Lamu. That's a good news. So the boss hosts Orengo Amolo. The Standard has established that Raila got concerned after 3 leaders held a closed-door meeting in Oparanyas Butere's home, or in Oparanyas Butere home, just to probably exhibit their displeasure on how the party has handled issues, and especially raising concerns on the aspect of the BBI and how, of course, this is important. And on matters education, this is an interesting story. I scored a B+ thanks to a stranger I met on Facebook. It's not as bad after all. They say social media has its fair share of goodies and the negatives. And to this one, definitely one would say that she is happy to have been part and parcel of the social media family. Why? Mother of one wants to be a teacher or a nurse. Woman got help that allowed her to go back to school after 12 years. When the odds are stacked against you, sometimes it takes the kindness of strangers to help you achieve your dreams. And that is the lesson that the 32-year-old Puritan Kather learned after overcoming formidable hurdles to score a B+ in last year's Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. A nice story, a nice piece. In all this, sometimes these particular things that are of human interest, or these stories that are of human interest, that hugely speak volumes of what plays out in that particular setup. And therefore, this time around, of course, that's one that you definitely want to read and understand some more. Even as we try to load on the People Daily, not to worry, we'll be looking at it as we proceed with the broadcast, and not so much of clarity, and the system is also jamming up on me. So let's leave it at that first. Look at what my team has prepared, and then later on I'll update you on what is happening on the roads, and equally what the People Daily details. I know I have it here, but then again, sometimes it's fair that even as we look at it, we have it clear on screen for you. Now, ODM leader Raila Odinga has met Senate Minority Leader James Orengo. That is ahead of today's debate on the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. Orengo and a section of ODM members of Parliament are calling for amendments to the bill before it is voted on. However, the question on whether to amend the bill before passing or rejecting it is entirely still unanswered, with Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka expected to guide the House. Musa Salah with a report.
Order number 1, communication from the chair.
Senators will troop to the upper house on Tuesday to debate on the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 before voting, following a divisive vote in the National Assembly last week.
Okay, honorable senators, have a communication.
The first agenda in the Senate tomorrow will be whether or not the senators can amend the BBI bill, with Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka expected to guide the members on whether to correct the anomalies picked by the Joint Justice and Legal Affairs Committee or pass it without any alterations.
I beg that
Senators are sharply divided over the said amendment to the bill before the vote. In their debate last week, members of Parliament questioned some of the proposals in the BBI bill, including the creation of 70 new constituencies. It is as a result of this bone of contention that a section of ODM leaders have faulted the BBI bill. The Orengo-led group has questioned the criteria used to allocate constituencies, saying ODM leader Raila Odinga's strongholds, including Nyanza, Western and Coast regions, were shortchanged. The proposal to create the 70 extra constituencies will see Mount Kenya region bag 17 new constituencies. Out of the 17, President Uhuru Kenyatta's native county of Kiambu will bag 6 constituencies, Meru 2, while Kirinyaga, Embu, Murang'a and Laikipia are set to get 1 each. The remaining 53 constituencies will be distributed among 20 counties, with Odinga's Nyanza home turf getting an additional 4 constituencies.
Senator Wako is here. Senator Kavindu is here. Senator Haji is here. We couldn't get anything. And we all presented and did all our English. They ignored us. Completely.
Orengo's opposition to the bill, even before the JLAC committee submitted its report to the bicameral parliament, threatened the fate of the bill in the Senate amid fears of an ODM purge in both houses, with the party de-whipping Rarieda Member of Parliament Otiende Amolo from the powerful JLAC vice chair position.
And me, I can never be intimidated in my political life. Can never be intimidated. Because I've seen many people come and go. I've seen many powerful people come and go. I've seen presidents come here and go. I have seen people who, on their word, you would leave this house and you'll be locked in the same day.
But in what seems like closing the ranks before tomorrow's vote in the Senate, ODM leader Raila Odinga met with Orengo alongside Deputy Party leader Wycliffe Oparanya and NARC Party leader Charity Ngilu at his current residence. A few hours after meeting the trio, Orengo and Amolo, in the company of Oparanya, met at Cotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli's Ildamat home in Kajiado County in a move that is expected to prevent a recurrence of the voting patterns of members of parliament on Thursday in the Senate.
Machafuko ambaye huwa inakuwa baada ya uchaguzi, watu wakiuawa, biashara ya watu ikiharibiwa, ati hiyo sasa hii BBI itakuja ndio dawa ya kuondoa uchafuko wa baada ya uchaguzi wa Kenya hii. Hiyo si dawa.
A section of members of parliament allied to Deputy President William Ruto surprisingly voted in favor of the bill, but with the MPs insisting that they were given the pleasure to vote according to their political interest. The same is expected tomorrow. Musa Salah, TV 47.
And to Mara's education, 893 students who sat the 2020 KCSE examination scored grade A. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha says the 2020 candidates have recorded an exemplary performance compared to the class of 2019. This is despite them having to deal with challenges such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Our senior Education Affairs reporter, Sharon Baranga, with the story.
More than 700,000 candidates who sat for the 2020 KCSE examination in April have received their results.
There were 893 candidates who scored A+, which is 0.1%, as compared to 627, which compared to 0.09, 2019. This is one of the clearest indicators, ladies and gentlemen, that the candidates have performed at par, if not better, compared to 2019, despite the negative effects of COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, the number of candidates with minimum university entry qualification, which is grade C+ and above, rose to 143,140, representing 19.03%, compared to 125,747, representing 18% in 2019.
6,420 candidates scored A-, 14,427 candidates had a B+, while 25,207 had a B plain. In the 2020 KCSE examination, 19 subjects recorded a significant improvement in performance compared to 16 subjects that recorded a significant improvement in the 2019 KCSE examination.
Thanks to the well-coordinated education sector, the 2020 candidates whose results we are releasing today can now join TVET institutions, TTCs, medical training institutions and universities at exactly the same time they have done, the effects of COVID-19 notwithstanding. All candidates have a place in our education story. I want to repeat that all candidates have a place in our education story. Our government has ensured that every child in our country has a place to pursue a career. And everyone deserves a chance, and that chance shall be given.
223 students with special needs scored C+ and above, while some students greatly improved in this exam compared to how they performed in KCPE. Hassan Abdullahi from YM Secondary School scored a B-. In KCPE, he scored 168 marks. Cheruiyot Bet from Kimargis Secondary School scored a B- after scoring 190 marks in his KCPE. Kipis Yomit got a C+. He had 151 marks in his KCPE.
The message here, ladies and gentlemen, is very clear. This, I don't know whether to call it madness or lack of knowledge, that you must go to the Panganis and Kenya high schools of this world. It is our duty as government to ensure that we nurture all the children, even those who will not have performed well. We must still give them, including the ones with E, we must give them an opportunity, because that E does not mean failure.
The 2021 KCPE and KCSE examination will be done in March next year. The 2020 KCSE candidates have registered an exemplary performance compared to the 2019 KCSE candidates. This is despite them undergoing a myriad of challenges, such as being away from school for a couple of months as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sharon Baranga, TV47 in Nairobi.
Still on that, Robinson Simiyu Wanjala emerged the top candidate in 2020's Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, KCSE. Releasing the results on Monday, Education CS Professor George Magoha announced that Wanjala emerged top after scoring 87 points, which represents an A plane. Wanjala says he would like to pursue medicine and specialize on oncology at the University of Nairobi, as Mwangi Maina tells us.
Shortly after he shot to the limelight and hit headlines as a top KCSE candidate in the 2020 KCSE examinations, celebrations broke out at the home of Robinson Wanjala Simiyu in Buruburu Estate in Nairobi. Wanjala, former student at the Murang'a High School, emerged top among a pool of more than 700,000 students who sat for the examinations.
Tulikuwa na matarajio kwamba atafanya vizuri, lakini sio vizuri enough ya kuwa number 1. Kwa hivyo wakati ambapo alianza kutangaza, nilikuwa ninawakumbusha, nawaambia kwamba mkiona wakitaja Murang'a High School, huyo ni Robin. Na kweli waziri alipotaja Murang'a High School, mimi nikasema it's done. Kisha nikaona jina lake na nikasikia furaha nyingi sana. Hata sikukula hicho chakula mpaka wa sasa na nasikia niko sawa. Kwa hivyo nilisikia furaha nyingi sana kama mzazi na nikasikia kumshukuru Mungu kwa yale ambayo yamefanyika.
Wanjala says he expected to perform well but did not dream of being Kenya's sharpest brain amongst all students who sat for the examination. He attributes this to hard work, discipline and determination as his key pillars as put forward in the school motto.
Not a sure bet all through that I would perform well. There were challenges, but I just decided to continue keeping strong and ensure that I give everything I had, until the very end.
Wanjala scored 409 marks in the 2016 Kenya Certificate of Primary School Examinations KCPE from Gashie Primary School in Kiambu County, but Murang'a High School was not among his schools of choice. His mother says it took the efforts of teachers to speak to him. He adapted, and here he is, literally on top of the world.
Bila aliitwa kule tukajaribu kuongea na walimu wake. Sana debut akatueleza ya kwamba ni shule mzuri na tukaridhika na hiyo, na pia naye akakubali akasema acha niende hiyo, tatia bidii mbeleni.
Teachers in Murang'a High School have worked with me. There were times I was down and they really supported me and encouraged me, and also my classmates. I say thanks a million to all of you for working with me, for working as a team. We worked as a team and
soon after word spread out, teachers at the Murang'a High School broke into cheers and celebrations for producing the top candidate. Wanjala has thanked his teachers, parents and fellow students, attributing his performance to the support all accorded him.
Robinson Wanjala's stellar performance that has pushed him to the national limelight has been attributed to sheer hard work and determination. by him and his parents. He now hopes that one day he will continue with his education, pursue a degree in medicine, and one day provide solutions for cancer treatment in the whole world. Mwangi Maina, TV47 from Buruburu, Nairobi County.
6 out of the top 15 candidates countrywide are from Kenya High School. For the second year running, the school has recorded an exemplary performance. There were celebrations at the school after the results were released, and our Education Affairs reporter Andrin Kilemi caught up with some of the top students during the celebrations and filed this report.
An ecstatic moment for parents, teachers and students of Kenya High School as the 2020 KCSE results were announced Monday. And for the second year running, Kenya High School emerged top on the list. 6 out of the 15 candidates nationwide are from this school.
Tunafuraha, Mungu has done it for us. God has done it for us. And I want to dedicate these results to God, to the teachers, the management of this school, the BOM members, led by Chair Canon Juki, and the PA Chair Dr. Ball, and all the parents and the students who have done for us. We thank God.
Sharon Chepngeno Terer emerged the top girl countrywide with a mean score of 87 marks. Sharon was here to celebrate her performance, saying she would like to pursue pharmacy in future.
I'm happy. I was surprised. I wasn't sure it's my name. I wasn't there when it was being called. So I came and saw the TV and it's like Sharon Chepngeno. I'm telling my sister maybe there's another Sharon Chepngeno. I've not even sent the results, and then I came home. My parents are already there and they're usually late coming home. So it's me.
I was not quite sure about, but when they say Kenya High School, then I say, oh, this one is Sharon. And then they immediately I start receiving calls from very many people. And then we were so happy.
Esther Mbugwa Washushu, who is the second best candidate with a mini score of 87, says she did not expect to emerge among the best, attributing her success to hard work and commitment by her teachers and parents.
I really can't say enough. I'm so happy. I just thank God because during these uncertain times, during this tough time, God still saw us through, but I'm so happy. I wasn't the best girl. I was the second best girl after Sharon Terer, who is also my friend, and I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy for every student who pushed through despite these tough times. I'm so happy. Yeah, that's all I can say.
The top students also keen to note that the disruption caused by the pandemic in some way affected their performance. Kenya High School continues to lead in the KCSE examinations, emerging top yet again in the 2020 KCSE exams, with 6 girls leading out of the 15 top students in the country. Andrin Kilemi, TV47 from the Kenya High School, Nairobi.
Secretary Professor George Magoha has assured Kenyans that all schools, including private schools, will roll out the new competency-based curriculum CBC by the beginning of next year. This as President Uhuru Kenyatta witnessed the swearing-in of Professor Fatuma Chege as the Principal Secretary in the new State Department for implementation of the new curriculum.
Education CS Professor George Magoha says schools that reopen today for 2020 third-term calendar will proceed for a long-term holiday before being introduced to the new curriculum CBC next year.
And proceed on a week-long holiday, and then, and only then, shall we start a new year. That new year, ladies and gentlemen, entails the rollout of CBC Grade 5. And for the avoidance of doubt, we shall all roll out Grade 5 together, whether you are in private school or public school. Like I said the other time, there's only one government.
Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development plans to roll out the new curriculum to Grade 5 learners, which is currently at the final stages. According to the new term dates announced by the Ministry of Education, learners in Grade 4 will resume learning on the 26th of July 2021, when the new school calendar is set to kick off. The term will run all through to October 1st, allowing learners to break for just a week. Second will start on the 11th of October and end on the 23rd of December. Third term will begin in January 2022 and end on the 4th of March 2022. KCPE 2021 will begin on the 7th of March to 10th of March 2022. With KCSE scheduled to start a day later and end on the April 1st, 2022. While receiving the 2020 KCSE results, President Uhuru Kenyatta also witnessed the swearing-in of Professor Fatuma Chege as the Principal Secretary in the new State Department of Implementation of Curriculum Reforms.
And now what we seek is for you to use that expertise, that knowledge that you have, together with your colleagues, to oversee the successful implementation of our new curriculum.
Chege will spearhead the execution of the new competency-based curriculum CBC. Teachers in some schools have begun the process of training teachers on how to roll out the program.
This system is long overdue because it will bring the best in our children by developing their skills and knowledge, and application of the same will ensure our children become better communicators, critical thinkers, among many other things. So Kenyans should now be fully ready to embrace the new education system. TSC, which is also represented here by Madam Nancy, is a very key player. We are going to ensure that they get the necessary support.
If the program will be implemented, children will spend 2 years in pre-primary, 6 years in primary schools, and 6 years in the secondary school. At the end of the pre-primary 2, the learners will be assessed internally, but will all transition to grade 1 in primary school.
And to the unfortunate bit of this, 287 individual students who sat for 2020 KCSE will not receive their results for involving in exam irregularities. Education CS George Magoha, however, says that there is no school whose results were cancelled in totality, but over 20 schools are under investigations following alleged malpractices, as Lekishon Laban tells us.
The Teachers Service Commission says some professional and experienced teachers were allegedly involved in examination malpractices.
We are very disappointed by these reports, especially when they involve professional teachers. Teaching is a noble profession, and we should uphold the ethics of this profession.
The TSA boss says alleged irregularities touches on the use of smartphones, with incidences such as screenshots and dissemination of question papers directly to candidates or hired people to do the questions on behalf of candidates. Another incident involved a female school principal in Machakos who was caught with screenshots of examination questions on her profile status. A senior teacher in one school was also arrested using his phone to help a candidate doing her examination from hospital. Another teacher had posed as an examiner in one center, but the long arm of the law got him and has since been arrested. To curb the alleged examination malpractices, the TSC says it will launch a biometric system to enroll and validate all teachers in public schools.
We must be extremely cautious to avoid punishing framed-up teachers who could otherwise be sacrificial lambs of the true examination crooks. For instance, we must interrogate allegations of how a teacher can deliberately post smuggled up questions on her own app WhatsApp page, the consequences notwithstanding. To this end, we have resolved to launch a transparent process of biometric enrollment and validation of teachers in all public schools.
Despite the alleged irregularities, Education CS George Magoha announced that there was no school whose results were cancelled in totality, except for the 287 individual students where sufficient evidence was used to arrive at the cancellation verdict. Out of the 287, 211 were found with unauthorized materials in examination rooms. 45 mobile phones are under investigation to detect the examination frauds. Other alleged malpractices include impersonation, collision, and double scripts. Magoha, however, says that 20 schools are being investigated over irregularities and may trigger cancellation of results once approval is established.
These candidates are very lucky because otherwise we would have perhaps cancelled about exams from about 20 other schools. But like I've said, we have given the benefit of doubt, and as we continue to check the results, for now they'll get their results. But if we find a very compelling one, we shall go and appeal to His Excellency so that we can actually cancel that result.
The CS, however, says the class of 2020 performed better than the class of 2019 despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Lekishon Laban, TV47.
And on the first day of schools reopening countrywide, at least 3 schools in Baringo County remain closed, while others registered low turnout due to insecurity. Some residents, who include learners, have already fled the area. Petronila Goren has more details.
Students in at least 3 schools in Baringo County did not reopen on the first day of schools reopening Monday. As learners across the country were reopening for the 3rd term, their counterparts in Baringo South are fleeing from their homes. Residents fled their homes following an attack on Friday. The situation has been caused by cases of insecurity in the area, with Baringo South as the most affected. According to Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary in Baringo, Joshua Cheptarus, the banditry in the region has affected learning and has threatened withdrawal of teachers should banditry escalate.
Parents are longing to have their children back to school. Students long to go back to school. Even others have started wondering where to have their children learn, because the problem of insecurity, which has hit this county year in, year out, has not been resolved. And I want to take this opportunity to really plead with the government and the security agencies to very quickly take a step to make sure that students resume back to school.
GSU camps have turned to be temporary homes for the residents, even as the area continues to record an increase in banditry attacks. For the last 1 month, cattle rustling in Baringo have been part of news items.
Sasa tunataka tufungue shule kama wengine. Hatufungui mashule kwa sababu ya mambo ya usalama. So nataka niombe serikali, kwa sababu usalama iko jukumu la serikali. Raia hawezi kujilinda, hawana ile masilaha ya kujilinda nazo. Nao wakora ambao wanajulikana sehemu wanatoka, muondoe katika sehemu zetu. Eneo langu la ubunge ya Baringo Kusini, waotoke, waende kwao. Waende na hiyo silaha zao, kwa sababu naona kama serikali hamtaki kuchukua silaha. Kwa nini hamchukui silaha kwa raia? Raia ambao wanatoka Tiati wanatembea na bunduki na mtaka kuchukua hiyo bunduki zao. Hii ni Kenya gani?
Last week, the Rift Valley Regional Commissioner George Natembea had a closed-door meeting with security agencies in an effort to try find a lasting solution to the increasing banditry attacks in Baringo South. The operation in Tiati to flush out bandits has remained a challenge to security agencies, who seem to be overwhelmed due to vastness and the rugged terrain of the region.
Nimeama mara ngapi? Mara 4. Kwa kuama na kurudi. Hata mimi na sani ya leo hata sitabui kama takuaji.
Niko na watoto, niko na mbuzi 5, lakini sasa nimeshindwa nielekee wapi.
Tangu wafamia mkutane, kwa sababu watu walikuwa najua next ni haraba. Kwa hivyo hofu bado iko mingi.
We are asking the government to tell us point blank if they have been totally defeated to stop this nonsense of cattle rustling.
Despite the government security operations in the region, leaders say more should be done. Reporting for TV47, I'm Petronila Goren.
All right, now to more in politics. At least we've done so much of the education line. Of course, we'll also be looking at that extensively alongside the guests of the day. But the impeachment trial of Wajir Governor Mohamed Abdi Mohamud is set to kick off Wednesday before a special 11-member committee chaired by Nyamira Senator Okongo Omogeni. Appearance notices were served last week to both the Wajir County Assembly Speaker Ibrahim Yakub and the governor. 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, have been allocated for the hearing. According to Okongo, names and statements of witnesses in support of the case by the County Assembly are to be filed by 5 p.m. today. Now, the number of witnesses have been limited to 3 for each party. Thereafter, the committee will retreat from Friday to Sunday to analyze the evidence presented before tabling a report on its findings. That should be Monday, the 17th of May.
We will commence with hearing of the case as presented by the County Assembly on Wednesday and allow cross-examination of the witnesses that will be presented by the County Assembly. And then on Thursday, we'll allow the Governor to make his response to the charges as drafted by the County Assembly and the evidence as tendered before the committee.
And while we'll be talking matters business, it's important that you understand today is a special day, because then we cannot run away from these conversations that revolve around matters education. And as you are well aware, Robinson Simiyu Wanjala emerged the top candidate in the 2020 Certificate of Secondary Education, that is KCSE. Upon that release yesterday, definitely we also had a moment to chat with him. Abubakar Abdullahi, had that extensive conversation with him, and therefore, we get to listen to what it is that this young brain has in store for his life. Look at that.
Candidate Robinson Simiyu Wanjala joins us on the broadcast now. Good evening, Robinson, and thank you for making time for us. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Good evening to you too.
All right, Robinson, you are the country's lead candidate in the 2020 KCSE examination results. How do you feel tonight, Robinson?
I would say I'm overjoyed. It's an amazing feeling, actually, and a feeling of hard work finally paid off. Yeah.
You say it's a feeling of hard work finally paying off, Robinson. Were you sure that you will feature at least in the top 10 top performers nationally?
I wasn't sure that I will be among the top 10, but I prayed to God to be among the top 10, and I hoped for that.
All right, you topped the country with an airplane.
Yeah, I held on to that.
Fair enough, and you have topped these examinations with an airplane of 87.33%, which is an airplane, of course, in the results. But what was your performance pattern like? You are a bright student. Will I be wrong in supposing so?
No, you're right, actually. I used to perform quite well, even in school, and it was a combination of hard work. Yeah, I really worked hard, and definitely God, He kept me through. I performed well even through, and the teachers encouraged me and told me that I could be the best in the country.
All right, Robinson, and talking of teachers encouraging you, there is a social media picture that is doing rounds, a picture of you and the deputy principal of Muranga High School with a post-dated check worth 50,000. The surety was if you lead the country, you will win that. Was that a sure bet?
It was a promise from him, and I was sure he would fulfill it. So I think now the end part was on me to try and become the best.
All right, you sat for these examinations amid COVID-19 pandemic that has ravaged the entire globe and interfered with the calendars, not just of education, but other sectors as well. But how unique was the last year's examinations, which you, of course, led?
I can see the exams were, some of them were fair, some were, of course, difficult. It was not a sure bet all through that I would perform well. There were challenges, but I just decided to continue keeping strong and ensure that I give everything I had. until the very end.
We are talking of a year that was and still is of COVID-19, Robinson, which saw 9 months holiday, which is the longest on record. What were the preparations like? Were you studying while at home?
Yeah. While I was at home for the 9 months, I tried my best to ensure that I maintained the focus and the zeal to continue working. The teachers ensured that we had online lessons, and they really ensured that we followed them. And personally, I tried to design a timetable that was like that in school. At times I was waking up at 4 a.m. even here at home to study. And I'm just happy the sacrifice finally has paid off.
All right, the results are out, of course, not to mention what you have scored again, but what will you want to be in the future, Robinson?
In the future, I would like to be a surgeon and hopefully specialize in oncology. Yeah.
And where does that inspiration of wanting to be a surgeon come from? You have a family member who is?
Not really, but it has been a childhood dream to be a doctor and a surgeon. Then from the recent past, I saw how cancer patients were suffering, and I guess that just motivated me to try my best and give back to the community in that way by helping them.
All right, and Robinson, you are in the limelight because you led in these results. There are many who tonight are equally getting results that they probably will not be happy about. What message do you have for your class of 2020?
I'd love to say that God closes one door with the intention of opening others. That is what I've believed in all through. So even if maybe today a candidate didn't get the results that they expected, it's not the end. It's not the end of life. It's not a reason to make them seem like failures. No, they are not. And anyone who has such thoughts should keep them off completely, because there are many doors to success, and we are all going to succeed in different ways. So they should just accept the results the way they are and ensure that they try their best to succeed. And I assure them that if they are not going to let these results get them down, then definitely they are going to succeed. There are many paths to success. It's not about KCSE alone.
All right, and I suppose the audience watching this will see how your response to that question is indicative of the high marks you scored in these examinations. Quite a wise counsel, one would suppose. You are done with the Form 4 stage of education now. Which university will you like or want to join? Your university of preference?
In the country, I would love to join the University of Nairobi, but of course, I'm still open to any chance abroad. I'm open to that too.
All right, and as we conclude this interview, Robinson, and I let you go, any specific shout out to any of your teachers, your classmates?
I think I'd just love to say a big thank you to all my teachers, not only in Boranga High School, but all the way from primary school. They have been supportive and encouraging me, and all the teachers in Boranga High School have worked with me. There were times I was down, and they really supported me and encouraged me. And also my classmates, I say thanks a million to all of you for working with me, for working as a team. We worked as a team, and I'm sure that God has rewarded our effort.
All right, Robinson Simiu Wanjala, thank you once again for making time for us tonight on TV 47.
Well, incredible there. Certainly wish him nothing but the best in life. And yes, next step from there, they go all the way to campus, TVET programs that really the government is trying so hard to push. And that clarion call of making sure that at least there's space for everyone, and also we celebrate everyone in their own special capacity. Long gone are the days where you reprimand and question just where next this child goes. Remember, there are a couple of things that could have informed someone's failure, and not necessarily that that is determined by the fact that they are really not as intellectual as one would want to assume. And therefore, we get to have this conversation briefly. I know so much has been spoken about this, but then again, we do not stop until that moment we envision a great transition processes in the country. We said should be 100% transition. Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, also maintaining that the government has set aside all these programs to ensure that all the students that sat for the examinations, received their results, are able to transition to the next step. And like I have said, I'm mentioning a couple of things in regards to the programs that are available. Those ones that will make it to the university, congratulations to them. Those ones that will not, all these other programs that come in handy to make sure that they are well catered for. And therefore, the 747,171 students will have opportunities across the country as dictated. Help loans available also to make sure that they get the boost, and of course to boost this ability for them to progress to the next stages. And therefore this morning we engage Caroline Kinyua, who's a School of Business and Economics Department, Mount Kenya University, or is in that school. And therefore we know very well that from high school then you start thinking of what next, what is this university that you'll go to. Probably she'll paint a picture of what really plays out, as some of us could have gone through the same, but times are changing at this point of competency-based curriculum activities, just how different are things. And equally we have Jasper Ondimu, who's an education expert, to equally ponder on the same in regards to the results, in regards to the lessons that we pick and what it is that we need to do different. Karibu sana, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen, yes, thank you so much for your time this morning. I know it's an early one, but then again, we have to discuss matters education. They say zero education or minus proper system of education, then we've lost it. Good to have you for the very first time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
Glad
too.
to be here.
Jasper is a household name. How have you been?
I've been good. Always happy converging on educational matters.
Indeed. And as they would say, they have defied the odds to register impressive results in regards to what we expected after the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, and even in comparison to what played out in 2019. What do you make of that?
Well, in current times, it goes without saying that the class of 2020 really did a commendable job.
Right.
So kudos to everyone. You realize that the exam and also the better part of the learning occurred during unprecedented times. Uncharted ways of learning had to be assumed. Again, we realized that there was also plenty of mishaps here and there as a result of, say, matters to do with the ability to either afford the technology that was needed in order to partake the blended learning. And so generally, it's a good start. It's a good start. The students have done well, and congratulations to all.
Jasper.
For me, as you were introducing us, you said impressive results. But I'd like to take a different approach. Because if you look at the total candidature of more than 700,000, and then you have about 143,000 getting C+ and above, that accounts for about 19%. So we're talking about a 19% pass rate. And this is as a result of the measures that were introduced by then CS for Education, Fred Matiang'i. He did away with standardization of results, and mostly what we see today is the raw score. So I can say since that time until now, we've got used to this particular aspect of very few students getting C+ and above, which is not good for us, because even in terms of your test and measurement, you're talking about a normal curve. What we see here is not a normal curve. You have more than 80% of the candidates getting below the pass mark.
Okay.
And therefore, that is why I'm reluctant to call it impressive. Yes, these candidates have improved from last year's, because even the candidature of those going to university has increased for about 20,000. But still, we do ask the questions, why is it difficult for the council to do some moderation to have a good number of students going to university? Because right now, the universities are saying they have places of about 200,000. So you have a deficit or a shortfall of about 60,000. And you've seen how universities are struggling to stay afloat.
Yeah.
University of Nairobi, even I think MKU, all universities are affected.
Mm-hmm.
So why has it been so difficult to have more students getting C+ and above?
I am curious to understand how then one plays around with this, because we also do not want to cook marks, and we also do not want to have scenarios where we are being extra, moderate in how we're handling this. And therefore, there is quite a gray line between what is reality in terms of, the intellectual capacity of these students, and also in terms of how we are just moderate with examinations. I don't know whether the competency-based curriculum is going to bring a different face, but I am curious to understand what exactly you mean when you say that we should operate in moderation to make sure that we get more students, getting to campus, more students, acquiring that mark that would allow them, not to forget that initially the C+ could probably not find their ways to universities, sure. But nowadays the C+ are finding their ways into, like it's a direct ticket. So somewhere in between, then we missed to understand what exactly you mean when you argue that way. And therefore, we take a short break. We come back on that very note.
Okay.
All right.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku. Pata offers zote mahali pamoja ili uongeze zaidi, utume SMS zaidi na ubrowse zaidi.
Wewe usijali. Tuma namba ya kila supplier kwa hiyo soko. Nitajua nitaongea na kila mmoja wao.
Very good. Piga *444# utunukiwe Credo Double Double.
Raukia siku njema na tunukiwa offers kila siku.
As the country gears up for possible BBI referendum and 2022 general elections.
As the salvos enter too familiar territory,
William Ruto will serve his 5 years term as the deputy president.
Pundits Night is here to give you powerful, thought-provoking political commentaries.
The mountain can produce a country.
Give Moses Kuria a chance to respond. Let me ask you this. Are you not taking advantage of first my situation?
You talk about the people with the ultimate power.
Kikuyus will vote for somebody from outside their community to be the next president of this country.
We talk to the newsmakers, the opinion shapers, and the pundits.
Fair enough. I believe
that part so that as we dissect everything you need to know to make an informed decision.
to join us on a Morning Cafe, where we have comprehensive political debates, newspaper review, in-depth analysis on matters of business, alongside KCK, lifestyle talks that will involve matters health, fitness, and not forgetting nutrition. And to cream it all on Friday, that is on Feel Good Friday, where we allow you to interact with the entertainment gurus as we close the week. With me, Linda Alela.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Yes, we're still on matters education. As you can see, the papers are definitely detailing hugely on what it is that played out after that release of the KCSE, that is 2020 KCSE. And with me still, Caroline Kinyua, who's in the Department of School of Business and Economics, that is Mount Kenya University, lectures there. And also we have Jasper Ndimo, who's an education expert. And before we come to you, Jasper, we went for a break, we still had that conversation and trying to understand where Jasper's point comes from. But even before we delve deep into understanding him, there's been an argument that we really have not crafted, the best in the education sector to make sure that our students get, the best, that they would be ready when they go out there for the market. A change of face in terms of, education. We probably have gone through the 844 system, and now we're having our students coming into the competency-based curriculum. As institutions of higher learning, have you gotten time to delve deep into understanding these processes and, the transition process, and then how it will come in handy to make sure that even as you work on these students, you are confident that you're delivering them to the world where they will get job opportunities without having to struggle much based on what they have gained?
Okay, now from the onset, it's a journey. So before these students basically transition to the institutions of higher learning, we do engage in career guidance back in their high schools.
Okay.
So through that mentorship, through that interaction with various faculties, they are able to assess their abilities as to which career path they would probably take.
Okay.
And then once they enroll, of course, again, if I would talk about Mount Kenya University, we have mentorship programs whereby you take charge of a particular intake and see them through the entire academic program. And then, of course, you realize that now in that process, there is lots of interaction. You are able to build character, and then of course any issues that need to be addressed, well, that becomes the best point in time to deal with such.
Allow me to come in on that very note. Sure. And on several occasions we've said that, you sit down with students in the process of mentorship, they'll tell you, this is what I would want to pursue, this is where my interest lies.
Yeah.
But there's another factor of how you perform in examinations, and therefore, you just cannot go into the legal fraternity if at all you've not performed well, in as much as you dream of being that. And sometimes our dreams, our desires, our passions are pushed based on our performances, at the level of secondary education, high school education, and proceeding to the institutions of higher learning. How then do we get to strike this balance? Because we agree that there are great arrangements, especially on institutions of higher learning, that would get you from seek a certificate and you grow, but then again, reality is that there's also been question marks on the quality of this education, and so it becomes very hard, because then we limit people to other lines as opposed to the lines that they would have preferred based on their performances in class.
Okay, you realize in high school you're taking through mentorship programs and the like. They are the career guidance. That particular platform is able to create a vision for these particular students. They are able to come up with what they need or what they want to establish. So their focus is very well articulated. And therefore, at the end of the day, when they enroll at the various institutions of learning, they know exactly what it is that I'm working towards. Of course, back when dealing with the career guidance and say the mentorship programs, well, you're able to assess, say, these are my weaknesses, these are my strengths. Probably I need to put in more effort in certain areas. I need probably more activities in a certain program or a certain subject for that matter. And then by the time now you're in school, or rather you're in university or college, then you exactly know that based on my academic performance. I may be good at languages, I may be good at the humanities, the sciences, Therefore, it's only good enough that my career path is as per my interest as well as my academic performance.
Okay. All right, just for coming to you, I am really struggling to understand your point. And I know that back then we used to have privileges of the fact that, well, if this year the exam is extremely hard, then the marking is done based on that. And therefore, if the top student probably has not managed to, garner impressive marks, then there was something that was being done to make sure that, it was a fair process in terms of the final results. And that indeed was a good thing. And looking at a time like now, when we're talking about matters COVID-19, we've had this top student, saying that they are grateful that in as much as it was tough, during the 2020 session where they were away from school, their school tried their level best to make that active, participation through the digital learning. I can almost guarantee you that probably 60-something% of the students in the country were not able to get that advantage. And therefore, it would have been fair if this was put into consideration. Kindly make us understand, because then you've been there and here we are. It's a whole different phase. What exactly are you driving home in terms of a point?
My assertion is that there are various factors that mitigate the performance of candidates. A good example is a pandemic. Another one, it could be a question that is badly said in the exam. It could be a difficult exam. Of course, as we were speaking, my lecturer here was talking about that all the exams are derived from the syllabus. But sometimes as a teacher, you can always tell that this question is going to give students a hell of time. So there are some exams you might find are set so difficult. And you remember there was a time where there was a talk that there was no A in English. That is now where moderation should come in, because it is not really possible that you can say there was no A in English in the whole Republic of Kenya. So that is why standardization of scores comes in handy, that these factors are taken into context and then the candidates are awarded accordingly. And even when this year's Matiang'i came in, Honorable Wilson Sosion tried to drive the point that can we do standardization, but that time then people told him off because we were coming from an era of examination irregularity. Yeah. On the point that you were asking, maybe Madam here.
All right. I'm of the opinion that we probably need to improve our teaching methodologies so that when I sit for my English paper, it doesn't have to be straightforward, word for word, what we read in the book. There's a manner in which a question can still be asked, a bit of twisting here and there, and a student is able to work it out appropriately.
That is correct, but you should cater for a large amount of candidates, such that there are some questions, of course, that will try to sift the candidates between those who are very sharp and those ones who do not have the mastery of content. There are some questions that you can insert there to sift,
to moderate,
to sift them. Yeah.
All right. New programs are available, are just spread to incorporate some of these students. Why do you suppose then that the government or the Ministry of Education has adopted this system where like you rightfully put it, they don't put into consideration some of these key factors that could be informing the ultimate performance or the ultimate scores. And why is it then that they focus much on that as opposed to making adjustments, looking at what has happened previously and what has happened now, looking at some of the discrepancies that we speak about, looking at some of the difficulties that play out, the errors that equally are visible and are something that we see, and we probably need to be lenient on even the marking processes. Why is it then that we still hold it at this point?
First, I'd also like to give a historical perspective. Before CS Matiang'i came to the ministry, I mentioned CS Matiang'i a lot. Moderation was happening. We had a lot of students joining universities. Some of them were even going abroad, and Kenyan students were doing so well. So when the CS came in, he said there's a lot of examination cheating, which was a fact. There was a lot of examination cheating, so let us give them their personal scores. And then the way the Ministry of Education is led today, it is all about individuals. If CS Matiang'i gets out, then there will be Magua with new policies, then there will be another CS with new policies. So these policies are not institutionalized. I'll not be surprised when another CS will come in and even start the standardization aspect. And therefore, let us not look at standardization as awarding these learners free marks. In fact, some of these learners could have been disadvantaged even through the marking itself, which was done in a rush. And you saw the CS, I think, on Friday closing the marking centers, yet there was some marking going on up to Saturday. And then they had Sunday, then they released the results on Monday. And therefore, the quality aspects, obviously, were compromised. If you have examiners marking for long, some of them we saw they were on go-slow in various marking centers. So I don't see the need to rush this particular marking process, because, as I've said, there are some quality controls even in the marking. I've been an examiner before, and there are some quality controls that always take time. So in a case where there is a rush to deliver results, then you will ignore those quality controls, and then you'll say, now let us mark and
let's speak to the layman. Let's speak to the layman briefly before I loop in Caroline again. And true to it, back then we used to see that it could even take a month or two before the results were released. That is obviously to mean that the marking process took longer in comparison to what it is that we have today. But then again, the question was, over time we used to do examinations, midterm examinations before we get to end of year examinations, and these examinations were marked in just 1 week or so to speak. So how different is it that would probably require to get extra time, because they are individuals who've equally argued that rushing this process, not necessarily rushing, but just trying to use the minimal possible or the most minimal time is something that has come in handy also to address the aspect of irregularities. Why is it that you would argue that it is a rushed process?
Yeah, the process of marking national examination is a bit robust, because even before you start marking, there is a generation of the marking scheme. Then there is the marking of what we call dummies, whereby you will get scripts of picked randomly from candidates, and then the names are concealed, and then you will mark. Every examiner will mark, then award marks. There are those people there who are called team leaders. They will see how you've marked to master that particular marking scheme. There are about 12 dummies that the examiners mark in about 2 days. But due to the rush to deliver results, some of them do it within a day. And the dummies are meant to make the examiner to master the marking scheme itself before proper marking begins. And there are some subjects where there's a process that is called pegging. Pegging means that where you award a tick, then you say where that answer is from the marking scheme, to avoid instances where examiners might just award marks without reference to the marking scheme. So we find that in some areas they do away with that pegging because it is a bit tedious going to the marking scheme to see where that response is. Do away with that pegging so that they finish marking very fast. And in cases where examiners wake up at 4 a.m. and then they sleep at 10 p.m., you don't expect those examiners to deliver results. I've had an opportunity to have a conversation. Some of them, they say, this year, tunahurumia wanafunzi kwa sababu tulikuwa tunaharakishwa, chakula ilikuwa mbaya, walikuwa wanataka results. Those are examiners themselves telling you that. So And I hope that even you in the media, you can be able to highlight this, because if you have something that can affect the eventual result of a candidate, then it ought to be addressed. And it is unfortunate the CS did not mention about it, the ghost laws that were in various marking centers. Yeah.
All right, he raises very pertinent points, and I'm glad, you know, it's coming from the horse's mouth, because like he says, he's been part and parcel of this fraternity, or, you know, the examiners at some point in time. And just picking it up from what it is that he raises, probably also taking us through what plays out at that higher level in terms of marking, because examinations are equally there. Would you agree with his argument? Would you agree that in a way this is a rushed process, and therefore the final examinations are sometimes intense in comparison to the other usual examinations?
Certainly not. I wouldn't say the marking is rushed in any way, because I believe there could be more parties involved in the marking process as opposed to just working with a limited number of persons. And therefore, with a robust workforce doing the marking, then we don't expect that there should be any complaints. So unless maybe the examiners, and of course with all due respect, there is something, or there's a certain agenda that they're trying to follow up. Otherwise, that shouldn't be the case. And then, of course, there's a calendar of activities that has been structured, which we expect that should be followed for proper marking to be done, submission of results, moderation, all that. So basically, unless there are other pertinent issues that now have to be merged or merged into the marking exercise, in order to probably prove a certain point. We are at the point where,
the point that I like to emphasize that my lecturer here is talking about, the marking itself. Of course, we expect as education stakeholders that the marking is foolproof, that a student gets whatever that he or she is entitled. But you have a case where you're being rushed. The CS is rushing the chief examiners to finish marking. In fact, in some instances, the chief examiners are given ultimatums that I want you to finish this work in 2 days. The chief examiners will transfer that kind of pressure to the assistant chief examiners, to the team leaders, and all that.
But we've also witnessed laxity in the previous, systems of marking, and sometimes while it took longer, you could see the examiners taking their sweet time.
I agree. Previously, it was being done within a very long period of time. But there is a way that you can come to a middle point, especially this year, where you have a lot of examiners have complained about the time they had in the marking centers. In fact, it is not only even marking. There is also another process that is called cross-checking, whereby the marked papers, each examiner now will be able to look at the marks which has been awarded, and then look at the grid, if that is the actual score. So if you're being rushed, you just do it for formality purposes, you just tick, and then because you're being rushed, and that candidate is going to be disadvantaged. And those cases actually arise because you're human beings. Sometimes maybe the child is supposed to score 75, but someone writes 25. So it is that at that time that you'll be able to correct and put the right score. So yes, I do acknowledge that previously marking was taking a long time, but the manner in which we are rushing it, it's as if that it's a competition. You want to gain favor with some quotas, which I think is disadvantaging the candidates.
Okay, it is interesting to note that even back then, we're not even confident or sure whether we were getting the correct rule, because after all, whatever it is that you've been given, that is it. And I mean, true to it is that these are the stories we used to hear, that sometimes, it gets to the eyes of a teacher who's probably so exhausted, and, they might just decide, okay, read the first paragraph, and they give you whatever it is, that random thing. But like you rightfully said, then if it was cross-checking, if there was that option, then probably it could be a whole different affair. But before, again, we come to Caroline, we have not seen much of a difference in terms of, numbers. As a matter of fact, in our universities, we've seen numbers going higher. That sometimes we are told, there are very many students, the universities cannot accommodate more, and therefore, do you agree that this argument of the fact that we have very few students who've qualified to go to university is here or there?
Yes, we have very few students going to university.
But the numbers are higher. I mean, you will agree with me that even in Mount Kenya University, which is a private entity, probably the numbers are way higher than what was there in years back. You think it's a different thing?
Yeah, the numbers are gradually going down. That is why you've seen even the Minister of Education telling universities to initiate measures to ensure that they stay afloat. When we had the module 2, that is the parallel students going to universities, you had universities were having money constructions. You had the University of Nairobi, which did several constructions courtesy of module 2, that is the parallel. Right now we do not have them, because if all the C+ students or candidates are going to university, that means that these others are going to what we call TVET,
which is actually what the government is now advocating for.
Which is a good thing. We need these particular people, but our country, with the population we have, taking 140 students to university, in the long run, we are going to run short of human resource and expertise, because the people are going to be few. Perhaps the government is trying to curb those who are going to university, because we have had this myth that we have so many graduates, half-baked graduates.
We honestly have lost it,
Yeah, so I think it is something that in future we are going to we're going to regret.
Well, it could be about money, Caroline, and it could be about making sure that these universities stay afloat, maybe courtesy of the monies, the numerous monies actually that students pay. Those ones, in the parallel program. It's quite an expensive affair, I can tell you for free. But equally, that argument was justified at some point, just in the sense that, we used to say that really education has highly been compromised, because if your dad is able to pay, then they will pay, and you go to university, and sometimes we really don't get something that is worth coming out of this. We've seen universities being closed down because left, right, and center institutions came up, institutions that were not validated, that were not good enough, not registered, and all this. And therefore, do you agree with Jasper that we are getting to a point where we really are going to regret, based on the fact that we have very few students getting into the level of the universities? And I mean, is it not something that we should pride in? Because then we say, at least now we're getting back the value of a degree as it was back then.
Well, in that case, universities are still mandated to deliver graduates who can stand the test of time. And in matters to do with finances, there is what the Exchequer remits to the various institutions based on the number of students that they admit. Okay? Of course, now that is in reference to COOPS, or the former JAB. Now, in that case, universities again should not just rely solely on what the Exchequer gives them. There is need to go out of their way, create other versions, create other opportunities that can still assist in generating incomes for purposes of self-sustenance. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, that is quite a conversation, a lengthy one that we probably might not exhaust on as time goes by. But yes, the incorporation of competency-based curriculum, we wind up with that. But importantly, we have seen different categories and, a couple of other things that have been brought on board, how these students have performed. One thing to note is that, TSE was speaking of a scenario where they are going to introduce the biometrics dragnet aspect to curb on the matter of fraud. To curb on the aspect of malpractices in regards to matters of examinations. The release yesterday also had its fair share of this. Luckily, no school was cancelled, but then again, some are on the radar. And we had individuals, 287, quite a huge number, getting to a point where they were not lucky enough to get their results. How then can we handle this to make sure that we curb this cheating processes that go on, malpractices as mentioned? Is this approach one that is going to come in handy?
Of course, in any exam you'd expect examination malpractice. But the good thing, as the CS said, that the numbers this time round are quite few, which is a good thing. And I think this is more of a societal aspect where as a society we've learned the aspect of shortcut We've also learned these bad manners even from the politicians, our leaders. So I think it is good that action is taken against them. But what I do not agree with is the president, C.S. Magoha was more often quoting the president that, especially during the KCPE results, that the children, the candidates who cheated were going to get their results, some marks deducted, then the examiners are going to be punished. I think if a candidate, if irregularity has been detected in a candidate script, it is good that that paper is cancelled and the results cancelled in totality, instead of saying that we're going to deduct these marks. That way then it will be justice. That is what happens even in other international exams. You cannot cheat and then some marks are deducted from
That
you.
is not standardization, looking at the tough times that we have gone through. And actually he even said this yesterday, in his wisdom, His Excellency the President, we agreed that, we're not going to cancel examinations for any school.
Now, the moment we start to bargain about examination cheating in the name of moderate action, then we might eventually lose it, because the candidate will say, I'll cheat, and then a few marks will be deducted, I'll get my results. I think it's just do away that paper. That is what even happens to universities, MKU.
Actually, probably, okay, not really MKU, but that all institutions of higher learning, let me talk about the universities. You can treat each student in an academic disciplinary committee, where there is the incriminating evidence against this particular candidate. If all odds work against or for the person, then particular or respective measures can be put in place, whereby probably you'll have to either repeat that paper. If not that, the entire results are cancelled and you have to sit in for KCSE a second time.
Yeah. All right, we're closing. In 30 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, your view on our girls. Almost 600 and something sat for the examinations, while in maternity or on maternity. Really?
Wow. Now, for the girl child, it's heart-wrenching, to see them sitting for the exams in the maternity wards. And besides that, we also have, or rather we still recorded more boys than girls sitting for exams in areas like Mandera, Wajir, Turkana, Garissa, and Homa Bay. Okay, on the former, I believe when you don't have a focus, when you have so many other competing forces for the same focus, you are likely to lose it. And so, for these ladies, it's either they do not have someone to get them through, to take them through, to remain disciplined, and then of course the societal influence, peer pressure, and all that. That's how they found themselves in an unfortunate position. Of course, now being by virtue of the fact that they are still teens in schools and so forth.
As we wind up.
Now, for the boys who performed more than girls, you realize that in 4 of the counties, these are pastoral communities.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, they are paternal societies, whereby the ladies, they really don't have much of a say. And so when the boys are out probably herding, the ladies will be back attending to maybe the ill herds that could not make it to the other livestock. And so at the end of the day, well, their parties are equally compromised. Besides that,
as we
have, we have embedded societal or socio-cultural practices, early marriages, we have the female genital mutilation. It's possible that, just as C.S. Mango has said, if the quality assurance goes back to check what really happened in these areas, it's possible that these girls were either married off early. And that means they just couldn't sit for the exams.
Caroline,
yes, she's tuned into your time.
Yes.
Unless we make it 30 seconds.
I think my position is known about subjecting these girls to doing exams. It is unfortunate, and I would be happy to see a day that these girls will do the exams at a later date. And as my parting shot, I think it is important that the government treats education stakeholders equally, those in private and those in public. In a case where you see the tenants are flourishing more than the landlord, and then the landlord decides to punish the tenants, as my class 4 teacher will say, perpendicularly, then that is not right. I think we should be given an equal opportunity.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Then we have to close on this one, unfortunately, because time is not on our side. Caroline Kinyua, thank you so much. Jasper Odimo, thank you so much. We continue talking about this, and we take a short break. We come back with Matters Business.